Yep. Hi, everybody. Wow, this is in the round here. This is like Vegas. I love it. It is great to see everybody. Governor, thank you for spending some time.
Thanks, Laura.
We're really close here.
Happy, yeah, we are.
And it's been, I was thinking about this when I was asked to do this today. It's been about 2.5 years, Governor, since you graced my radio show, and you're not exactly a regular on the talk radio circuit. You know, what gives? Are we the ugly stepchildren of the media?
No, Laura, I have my own radio show, so I don't want to help the competition all that much, and I do my own radio. But you know, we'll see how this goes today. Maybe we'll come back more.
Oh, gee, thanks.
So like instant feedback.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay, look, this has been a rough couple of months for you in the media. We have read articles about how you came in as a reformer, and now some of these reforms haven't panned out. I mean, you just got, I think Gail Collins, who's a liberal columnist, she just savaged you today and said that you're toast, your campaign's over, you're not a reformer. How do you survive this onslaught day in and day out?
Well, listen, Laura, the elite folks from the media who cover me every day, I mean, understand where I come from every day. I'm in New Jersey. I have the New York Times in my media gaggle every day. And when you do things like I've done in New Jersey to take on a lot of these special interests frontally that, you know, they support, they just want to kill you. And that's what they try to do to me every day. And here's the bad news for them. Here I am. And I'm still standing. I'm going to continue to do it because what matters more is the fact that I wake up every morning knowing how to fight for the people in my state. And that's what I do, and I don't care what they write about me in the New York Times. They can keep it. I don't subscribe, by the way.
Oh, you don't subscribe? Hi. Common Core is a huge issue for conservatives. Everyone in this audience knows what the struggle is. In 2010, you actually signed the application for the Race to the Top funds. Yep. And signed on to Common Core, even though states like Virginia, right nearby, Virginia did a Virginia standard, didn't do the federal standard. So what gives with the Common Core thing? I know you have some now hesitations, but why'd you sign it?
The hesitations I have now, because in New Jersey we've always been for standards and for high standards, and we had those beforehand. But my concern now, as we've begun to try to do implementation, it's not only the heavy foot of the federal government that's coming in, but it's not doing what we need to have done in New Jersey. We need to have local control, parents, teachers in those classrooms. They're the ones who should be helping us at the state level set the standards. And so that was all teed up when I came in by Governor Corzine. We signed on to try to get funds during a really difficult fiscal time. But as we've now tried to work it...
Regrets?
Sure, of course. And now...
It's not political regrets? These are regrets?
Well, no, this is implementation regrets. I mean, this is like when, you know, unlike other people who just get to talk about this stuff, we actually have to do it. And once you start to do it, what I've seen is the concerns that I have are significant. And I set a commission up that is now coming back to me with recommendations. But my charge to them is we've got to keep government at the local level. Education, most importantly, has to be parents involved. There has to be teachers involved. That hasn't been part of this process, and it needs to be part of this process and will be, I think, as we move forward in New Jersey.
Right now, Scott Walker's making a really strong pitch to social conservatives. Obviously, Mike Huckabee and others as well, Ted Cruz. And when you think of someone like Scott Walker, back in the fall, he was a little bit softer on the issue of abortion. I think he did a 30-second commercial where he said, look, I'm pro-life, but ultimately I signed legislation that leaves a decision between a woman and her doctor. Now he's pivoted a little bit back to the right. I mean, he is pro-life, but he's nuanced the language a little bit. Where does social conservatism and Christie live together? I mean, how do you compete with Walker and all these other strong social conservatives, Governor?
I just stand on my record. I mean, I'm pro-life. I ran as a pro-life candidate in 2009 unapologetically, spoke at the pro-life rally on the steps of the State House, the first governor to ever speak at a pro-life rally on the steps of the State House in New Jersey, and vetoed Planned Parenthood funding 5 times out of the New Jersey budget.
Yeah.
And I have always thought, Laura, that what the people have the right to know is what you really believe and feel in your heart. And so people make certain assumptions because you're from New Jersey and because you're a Republican from New Jersey. And what they should do is look at my record. When you look at my record on those issues, it has been strong and resolute. And by the way, don't believe what the media will tell you about the fact that if you're a pro-life candidate, you can't get elected. Not only did I get elected the first time in 2009, but got elected with 61% of the vote and reelected in 2013 as a straight-out, unabashed pro-life candidate. What they care about is what's in your heart, and are you willing to fight for them?
Here are some of the words used to describe you.
Here we go.
Ready?
Is beautiful the first one? Come on.
Yeah.
Tell me the truth.
Supermodel.
Yes.
Explosive. Short-tempered. Hothead. Impatient. And that's just what your friends are saying. That temperament, the presidency.
Here's the word they miss. The word they miss is passionate. Now listen, I'm the son of I'm the son of a Sicilian mother and an Irish father.
Woo.
Yeah, which means in my household I got to learn about dispute resolution really early. The fact is that what my parents taught me was that if you really care about something, then you need to go all in. This is not about half measures. There were no half measures in the Christie household growing up, and there's none now. I care about fighting for the people that I represent. I care about fighting the fights that are worth fighting. And yeah, I'm going to be passionate about it. I'm going to speak my mind, and I'm going to be direct. I do not have political consultants whispering in my ear saying, here's the way you say it so everybody sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher. No, you're going to hear it directly from me and bluntly because I care. If I didn't care, there's no reason to do this.
But sit down and shut up?
Yeah, well, sometimes people need to be told to sit down and shut up. And,
I'm sitting down, by the way.
Yeah. And, quite frankly, Laura, some more of that stuff should be happening in Washington, D.C., because there's so much ridiculous stuff being spewed, especially out of the White House. Someone should say it's time to shut up.
The teachers' unions, you and the teachers' unions, it's been a rocky relationship, and I got to kind of, to say the least.
Yeah.
You had an adverse court ruling the other day in the state about how you decided not to fully fund the teachers' pension after you agreed to do so. That wasn't a great ruling. I know you're appealing, but how are you bringing people together in the state? You have such a constant adversarial relationship within that educational arena. What do people take from that experience into possibly a national footing?
Well, first of all, let's talk about, quickly about the court ruling. Once again, liberal judges getting themselves inserted into the decisions that are supposed to be made by the elected officials. And those decisions were made by me and by the legislature, which is controlled by Democrats. But more importantly, listen, the teachers union and I have not had the warmest relationship. I went after them very early on because I want to reform education in our state. Now, when you are tough like that, that's when you finally get in a position to be able to negotiate and bring people together. You don't do it from a position of weakness, you do it from a position of strength. They understand what my positions are. I believe teacher tenure needs to be reformed, and we reformed it in New Jersey. I believe we need to have more choice in schools. We have a school choice program and a charter school program in New Jersey. Fact is that that's not popular with the teachers union, but now when it comes time to try to really resolve a problem that all 40 states have on pensions, I've brought the teachers union to the table, and we're negotiating together, have an initial roadmap agreement that is going to help to save the pension system in New Jersey.
So you have a shortfall here, though, in the budget. How are you going to make that up now?
Well, no, listen, we don't have one. The judge hasn't ordered us to do that. And the fact is that what we'll do is do what I've done before, Laura. We're spending $2.3 billion less in discretionary spending today than we spent in fiscal year 2008. We're cutting the budget. We have 8,500 fewer employees than we had on the day I walked in as governor in 2010. That's being fiscally responsible, and we'll cut spending if we have to.
The last Gallup poll, Governor, only about 7% of Americans think that we should have increased levels of immigration. 7%. Following on that, Jeb Bush has recently said that immigrants are more entrepreneurial, harder working, and more fertile than others. He even suggested, Governor, that Detroit should be repopulated with foreign workers, immigrant workers, to spur the economy in Detroit. At a time where we have so many people unemployed, tens of millions of Americans out of the workforce, what is Governor Christie in a national setting, let's say you decide to run for president, what are you doing these issues? There seems to be a disconnect with the people, Governor, and the pause on immigration, a big one.
Well, two things. First off, I think that's misdirecting the priorities, right, that statement. Because what I would be concerned about are the people who are in Detroit right now. The hardworking people who stuck with Detroit and who have stayed there. We want to create economic opportunity for them. We want to create a better educational system so their children have a better future. And so that's misdirecting, I think, first of all, the goal here. The goal
Jeb Bush says they're more entrepreneurial, harder working, and more fertile than Americans.
Well, first of all, I'm not mentioning the fertility thing. I'm not getting into fertility. I don't think that's where we should be heading with this. But the fact of the matter is the most entrepreneurial people in the world are the people of the United States. And that's why folks want to come here, because that's the system we've set up and what we've created. And Laura, what we need to get back to in this country is creating an economic atmosphere where people want to come here and come here legally and create a great life, because the people who are already here are doing that for themselves and for their families. And so my focus on Detroit would be to say, how do we make that city for the people who are there? How do we make it better for them from an economic perspective? How do we make it better from an educational perspective so that more people will want to come to Detroit because there's great opportunity and not for other reasons?
Well, I think what's happened now, you have 58 million Americans now of working age who are basically operating outside of the workforce. That's a stunning number of people. 62% labor participation rate. Abysmal. It's embarrassing for our country. And yet there is an unending hunger for foreign workers coming into this table, mostly pushed by big business. And again, the disconnect between what American people need and what politicians in both parties, this is a bipartisan deal here, want. And how do you get the middle-class, hardworking American in, I don't know, Columbus, to look at the Democrats or Republicans and say, they represent me?
Well, what they need to look at is more than just Democrats or Republicans. They have to look at what the person is saying and what they've done in their career. And in my career, I have always tried to put the hardworking people in my state first. We vetoed 5 different income tax increases that the Democrats passed and put on my desk because we care about hardworking taxpayers first. You know, we've given parents choice in education because we care about the people who are paying the bills and working hard. The focus, unfortunately, with a lot of people in politics right now, is what they say on the editorial page of the New York Times and the Washington Post. And what we should be concerned about is what we're hearing, like what I heard when I traveled to 37 states last year. They want opportunities for great careers for themselves and for their children, and we're not talking about that, and we better start talking about it, because these folks, the hardworking middle class in this country, are the backbone of our society, and that's where we have to be focused on.
5% is what you got in the recent public policy poll that came out a few days ago. Christie, a year ago, was kind of one of the front runners. Now you're down near the bottom. Jeb Bush, Scott Walker, Ben Carson ahead of you. That's pretty low, and you're low in a bunch of polls. How do you overcome that deficit? It's a pretty big deficit.
Is the election next week? I don't know. Laura, let me tell you this. In 2009, when no Republican had been elected in New Jersey in 12 years, now when there's been 42 years since we sent a Republican to the U.S. Senate in New Jersey, everybody said there's no way Chris Christie could win in 2009. And then they said, well, he won, but it was because the other guy was bad, not he was good. And in 2013, we'll kick him out. And I got 61% of the vote, 51% of the Hispanic vote, 22% of the African-American vote, and 54% of vote from women. Now, if I decide to run for president, I'm not worried about what polls say 21 months before we're going to elect the president of the United States. If I decide to run, let me tell you one thing. I will run a hard fighting campaign where I will fight for the hardworking taxpayers of this country, and I'll take my chances on me. I've done pretty well so far. I kind of remember. Well, I will say one thing. I kind of remember in February 2007, it was going to be Rudy Giuliani against Hillary Clinton. That's what the polls said then. So I feel pretty good.
But Governor, but you do have the Jeb Bush fundraising machine. I know it. I've seen it in operation. It's formidable. You have the Jeb Bush family pedigree, which is formidable. Yeah, I carry some baggage, but that's a formidable thing to overcome. You discussed how we'll talk about the record of you and Scott Walker, but just on Bush, I mean, a lot of the fancy political consultants and a lot of the media types covering this today, they basically think this is Jeb Bush's race to lose.
Well, listen, if what happens is if the elites in Washington who make backroom deals decide who the president's going to be, then he's definitely the front runner. If the people of the United States decide to pick the next president of the United States and they want someone who looks at them in the eye, connects with them, and is one of them, I'll do okay if I run.
There's a sense. You get this sense in the country, and one of the tweets that came in my Facebook questions on my show today, I asked people to ask questions of you. One of the points was, we seem like we can't get ahead. You know, and we work and we work and we work, 2 jobs, yet we can't get ahead. We can't save money for a rainy day, and yet politicians are always like fighting with each other about things that don't really matter to us, that don't really affect our lives. And more people seem to tune out politics, Governor, than ever before today. The credibility of both parties is in the toilet, and they don't believe you when you say one thing, because 2 months later you'll do something different. How would a Christie, with your experience in New Jersey, it's been difficult at times, how would you try to break that logjam of distrust in the country today where people are saying, I don't like the 2-party system anymore?
Well, listen, I wake up every morning with a Democratic legislature, so I wake up every morning knowing I'm not going to get everything I want. But what you need to do is to stand firmly and tell people what you believe. The reason why the New York Times continues to write awful things about me is because every time I read something that they disagree with, I don't change my mind. I stick with where I've been. So when you're pro-life in 2009, you don't cut a commercial 4 years later because the New York Times doesn't like it and say that you're less than that. You know, when you say I'm not going to sign a tax increase under any circumstances of our income tax in our state because it's one of the highest, just because they write bad things about you, you don't change your mind. Once you do that, just like Ronald Reagan did, when you stand up firmly for your principles, then you're in a position to negotiate and break that logjam. I've done that in New Jersey with a Democratic legislature. So if I decided to do something else with a little bit more difficult group in Washington, D.C., you know, they have to know you're willing to fight, but also that you're willing to talk. I'm willing to do both, and I've shown that in New Jersey, and that's the way we've done it. But it's all, in the end, about standing up for what you believe in, and that's why you get some of those comments you made about me before. You know, that he's loud and he's brash and all the rest of those things. Well, you know, sometimes those special interests, they hate anything, more than anything else, they hate the truth. And that's what I say as I see it, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
When we look at this election, yeah, they're clapping for the truth. Good. We need that in Washington. We look at the next election, let's say Hillary is the Democrat nominee. Republicans haven't beaten the Clintons since, you know, it's been 1992. Okay, Bill Clinton, I think, lost 1 election. How do you beat Hillary Clinton?
Well, I think you make sure very directly that you talk about your different vision for the United States, different than the Obama-Clinton vision of the United States.
Which is?
Well, our vision for the United States is, one, to make sure that, you know, as Republicans, the way they'll try to tag us, Laura, is they'll say, well, we're the party of the rich. And I'll tell you something, I don't mind rich people at all, but we don't need to be standing up as a party defending them all the time. What we need to do is start fighting for the people who are trying to lift themselves up, who haven't had a wage increase adjusted for inflation in 15 years. Now, Mrs. Clinton's answer to that is to say, raise the minimum wage. I will tell you this. No parents are sitting around a kitchen table tonight saying, if our child can get a higher minimum wage, my gosh, every one of our aspirations for them will be realized. It's not happening. I want a country where those parents can once again honestly look at their children and say, you can aspire to be anything you want in this country no matter where you come from. Listen, my dad put himself through college at night. He worked at an ice cream plant in Newark, New Jersey to put himself through college at night after he came back from the Army. And the next generation, his son is the governor of the state of New Jersey. The fact is, that's what I want our kids' dreams to be about if that's what they want. And I want parents to be able to look them in the eye and honestly say that. That's not about a minimum wage. That's not about a bigger government lifting you up. That's about your dreams and your effort and your work ethic lifting you up. That's the kind of country we need again.
We're almost out of time, but they're going a little over on the time. Don't kill me on that, guys. There are a lot of politicians who are canceling town hall events. We've noticed it. I know a lot of people in this room are very frustrated. They feel like they call, they email, they try to get in touch with their congressmen or senators, including on this executive amnesty deal that's going down in Washington right now. They're very angry about how the Republicans have handled this, Governor. And they feel like no matter what they do, they call, they know they're in the majority in public opinion on this particular issue, yet they can't have an effect. There's a transparency problem in Washington, D.C. We say we're going to be transparent, and we're not. What about you?
Anyone who's frustrated, come to New Jersey. Yesterday, I held my 128th town hall meeting since I've been governor, And by the way, we don't do things like with cards like this,
hey,
where you have to fill out cards, and then people screen them for you, and we decide which questions I might like to answer. I sit in a room like this. We had 500 people yesterday in New Jersey, in Morristown, New Jersey. I come out and speak, and then I take my coat off, and we took questions for an hour. You raise your hand, I call on you, and I take a question, and I answer it. And that's what elected officials owe to their constituents.
Well,
and you can't be afraid. I get a lot of guys, you've seen these clips. I get a lot of people get up and yell at me and let me have it. And what I tell them in New Jersey is this: if you're nice and you're kind and you disagree with me, I'll disagree kind and gently back. But we're all from New Jersey. So if you give it, you're going to get it in return, and that's the kind of interaction we should have with the people that we're working for.
Well, now hold on. I sense a veiled reference to Jeb Bush, because there have been a few events I know where we write pre-screened questions, and is that what you're talking about? Do you think the other Republican candidates, or at least the front runners, aren't being as transparent?
What I'm saying, Laura, is that everybody who aspires to high positions of leadership in their state or in their country should be willing to take unscreened, unrehearsed questions from the people who pay their salary. And I've got anybody who's here, I've got another one next week in New Jersey, in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, in Bergen County. Come see it. It is not only informative, but it's also good theater. It's fun. We have a good time.
We need a little good theater in Washington. Governor, finally, we're out of time, but what'd you give up for Lent?
Well, Laura, I'll tell you, as a good Catholic, we'll have to give up something for Lent. I went to my parish priest and I said to him, I'm giving up the New York Times for Lent. He, no, don't cheer. It's bad news. He said, Chris, that's not acceptable. You have to give up something you'll actually miss. So,
thank you, Governor. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.
Appreciate it very much.